Hand sewing your Angry Bird is not as hard as it seems. You just need to use 2 of our basic stitches. You may choose if you want to use the running stitch or the back stitch on the Angry Bird. It will not be having a lot of pressure put on it, so either one works. For your small bag, you're going to want to use the back stitch to make it a little bit more secure so it can hold a little bit more weight. But for the Angry Bird, you could do either one. To start off, you're going to need your 2 body pieces. You're going to need your cutout eyes, your eyebrows, your beak and head feathers. Right now, all we need is the beak and head feathers. You don't even need your tail feather chunk. You can leave that to the side for now. To start, by the way, you can design your head feathers however you like. I thought this looked kind of fun. I'm going to stick my head feathers just here on one layer, and my beak also here. And then I'm going to take my fabric, my second one, and I'm going to layer it on top. We need to sew the side that's got the head feathers and the beak so they don't fall out. And I'm going to add some pins just to make sure they don't. And then since we're going to sew on the rest of this, I'm just going to add a couple to these other corners to keep the layers from shifting, like that one just did. There we go. Next step that I suggest for you is to mark exactly where you are going to be sewing. Giving yourself a nice straight line when you sew, especially when hand sewing, is not a bad idea. In this case, it doesn't matter what you use to mark with. We will not be seeing these marks at all later. But please be careful when you mark normal fabric. I'm going to use a Sharpie just so it shows up well for you. But if you can get a pen or something not as dark to show up, that'd probably be a good idea. So what we're going to be doing is our Angry Bird should be sewn at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're going to sew these 2 edges for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nifty difty ruler and I'm going to go, hey, right here is my 1/2 inch. Right here's a 1/2 inch. This is the side with my head feathers, so yep, I want to sew it. I'm going to line up these 2 dots with each other. And I'm just going to draw a line straight across. So when I hand sew, I know exactly where my stitches should be. We also need to sew the beak completely down, so you should do 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. I am really good at measuring. Comes from many years of practicing. It's right there. Oh, centimeters. Is a lovely 1/2 inch. Now here's where it gets tricky. We are going to sew these 2 sides completely. These 2, we're going to do a little bit different. First off, straight across from the beak. If we were to open this up and look carefully inside, we'd be able to see the orange down in there, but that's tricky to see through the camera. We are not going to sew this side at all. You do not need to draw this. I'm just going to do it so that I remember, don't sew this side. Across from the head feathers, though, we are going to sew a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to sew for about 1 inch on both ends. Still at our 1/2 inch. I'm a little bit skinny on that one. I should have measured that one. So this shows exactly where we're going to sew. I'm going to sew across this side, down this side, across here, and across there. I'm going to leave an opening here, and I'm going to leave this side open as well. This side is where we're going to actually end up putting that tail in, so we need the whole thing open. This side is how we're going to turn the bird right side out, because if you notice, those beak and head feathers are inside, right? Okay. Next step is to do some hand sewing. I'm going to use red thread because I think it's going to show up the best for you guys. When you hand sew, it might be annoying to rethread the needle a lot of times, but it's more annoying if you have so much thread that it gets tangled up. We're also going to double up our thread on this one just to make sure it's a little bit more secure. So I want about twice this. This is the length of my fingers to my elbow, and then back again. So I'm just going to measure out about that much. Cut it off. And then is when I need my hand sewing needle. It might be a little bit tricky to thread the eye of a needle. There's many different ways out there. I find the easiest is to hold the needle still. Or actually, I hold the thread still. I hold the thread still really close to the end here, and then I bring the needle point to it. So I'm going to actually brace my hand here. And I'm just going to stick it through. There we go. Please note, a fresh cut end of thread works so much better at going through the eye of a needle than thread that has had a chance to fray. So I said we're going to double up our thread. So all I did is I made it so both my ends, I got a funky knot going, so that both my ends are down here with it looped through the eye of the needle up here. I need to tie a knot down here that is big enough that when I pull it through my fabric, it will stop the thread at the knot. There's many different ways to tie a knot. You could make a circle by crossing the thread over and pull the thread through. That is a little bit small of a knot, so you might need to do 3 or 4 of them in the exact same spot so it doesn't get pulled through your Angry Bird fabric. See, it's pretty small there. To make sure it ends up in the same spot, you make the loop and you come through. Where this thread crosses is where that knot's going to be. If I hold on to my knot, it will pull the cross so the knot ends up in the same spot. So now I have 2. You can test and see, hey, is this actually going to stay? Looky there. With just 2, oh, nope, it popped out. Which means I need another one on there. And you just do that until the thread doesn't come through anymore. If you'd like to try a different knot, here's my favorite. Just because I'm lazy and I don't want to do precision. What I do is I take my thread over top of the needle here, and then I just pinch it so it stays there. And then I'm going to wrap this around 3, 4, 5, 6, however many times as you want. I want a slightly bigger knot for this one, so I'm going to go for about 5 or so. And then I'm going to bring my thumb up, and I'm going to pinch where all those loops are, and slide the needle up through my fingers, still pinching. You can loosen it a little bit, Kasai. Don't let go pinching. You're going to pull until this whole loop comes up. Keep pinching. And then tug it to make it nice and tight. And there we go. I got a knot right there. And this knot is a little bit bigger than the one I had before, so I think it's going to work. So, with a knot in my thread, I'm going to pick either this corner or this corner to start with because I can just do all this in one go and save that short bit for later. Let's start here. So I said there's 2 different ways, 2 different stitches you could use. I'll show you both real quick and different ways to do it. Since I'm right here, I'm just going to remove this pin. I can keep those from coming apart. First way to stitch this is literally to go back and forth like this, where you come up, make sure I'm in line, and you just go back and forth, up and down, making sure the distance from the start of the stitch to the end of the stitch and the space between stitches is the same. This is kind of called a running stitch. Just note, if you can make them that small and about that close together, so that it's a 1/4 inch or less between stitches, it will be better for you. So you could go back and forth. I find that a little time consuming. And since I've practiced stitching and pinning, I can do really short pinning style stitches where I can load my needle with a good 4 or more before I pull it through. And note, they're all about the same distance and about the same length. It's harder to see the red on the black than I hoped. So you can do the running stitch like this. You can do it, oh, and on the other side, there we go. There it shows them. You can do the running stitch like this. I suggest when you actually get to your beak and your head feathers that you might want to stab through a little bit more like this to make sure that you actually get through all layers. There we go. So that's the first stitch you could do. It's not as secure, please note there's all this space between our stitches. All this space between here. If we pull on this, you're going to see them kind of pull apart like that. If you want a slightly more secure one, we've got one that's called the back stitch. The back stitch starts with your thread coming through, and then what you do is you come forward, with like a normal slip stitch. And then what you're going to do, oh, I went off the screen. is you're going to come back here in the middle of that stitch and then come forward to the end. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm coming from, here we go, I'm coming from this point, out a normal slip stitch amount, and then I'm coming back to connect in with the end of that stitch. So basically I've gone twice the distance with my thread. And I just keep coming up to the same point. This one's a little bit slower, but it's more secure. When you pull apart like this, oh, I don't have enough of them in yet. Haha. 3 stitches isn't very secure. You can even do this with the stab to the back and come up option. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Okay, the key to make any of your hand stitches more secure is to try to have them closer together. I have in the past, if I really wanted it secure but wanted to go fast, I would do a running stitch. And then I would go back doing my running stitch the opposite, like catching more in the middle, so I had more stitches closer together. It is up to you how you're going to do that. So once I made it to my corner, I don't need to keep going. I'm just going to keep traveling this way. I'll do a little bit more of the back stitch, and then I'll switch back to the running stitch to show you what it looks like again. So I'm here, so I'm going to come forward, take a stitch, ta-da, and whoop. All I do is I come back to the front here, go out about the same distance away, so come back to the end of this stitch, focus. So here's where that stitch ended. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to go the same distance the stitch should be passed, pull it through. Where this stitch ended, and I'm to my beak. I made sure I went through all 3 layers. I'm going to just start stabbing through just to make sure I get through all 3 layers at this point. I need to make sure I stay in the video screen. Okay, that pin is causing more pain than it's worth. The reason why we're making sure we go through all 3 layers is sometimes when you hand stitch, it is harder to go through all 3 layers. And in this case, our beak and head feathers could get pulled on. They're going to be sticking off, hanging off the bird, so it's a good idea to make sure you do them a little bit more secure. Okay, at this point, I'm running out of thread. My thread is too short. I need to tie a knot at this point any shorter and I won't be able to tie a knot. There's a couple different kinds of knots you can do. You can make a circle. I almost got it too short. And then bring the needle up through the circle. And then where that crosses is where the knot's going to be. So I'm going to put it right next to the bottom of my stitch. Put my finger on it and then pull that tight so there's a knot. But if you remember, my knot came right back out of my fabric, so you should do at least 2 or 3 of this kind of knot if you're going to do this way. I'm going to have to show you other knots later, so I'm just going to go with this one and call it good. And I want one more if I can manage it. My thing is short. There we go. And then I'm going to trim off my thread. Leave just a little bit so that it can't get sucked back through the knot so good. And then I need to rethread my needle. Oops. By the way, this knot is called a sloppy knot with good reason. It doesn't always look very pretty, but it works. This is going to be the inside of your Angry Bird, so it doesn't matter if your knots are pretty or not. Okay, I'm going to pick up right here. Just come away a little bit from the knot. And then I promised I would show the running stitch some more. So here we go. I'm going to come over so the needle comes out. I kind of like poking myself because then I know that I went through all the layers. That is up to you. Basically all you do is using just the very tip of your needle, make a short little stitch. And once your needle has been loaded, you pull it through. Oh, by the way, once you sew past pins, you can pull them out. And there we go, there's a running stitch. Those are a little farther apart with less stitches than our back stitch. If you wanted to, you could do it some more. So here we go. We're going to come out here, and then I'll show you how I do the second running stitch. By the way, you don't have to load a lot of stitches on your needle. If 3 is how many on your needle fits well before it starts getting annoying, call it good. Okay, so I got my running stitch from here to here. Ta-da. What I'm going to do is I made it to the end here. I'm just going to loop back, so I'm coming back to this middle here. And then I'm just going to do the running stitch again, coming up in the middle of each of my previous stitches. There we go. Doubled that up a little bit. And now I need to tie another knot. So I showed you how to do that loop knot. Here's another knot that I like, where I just take a small pin in the fabric. I didn't go through all the layers, just this layer. And there I have a circle. I come through the circle with my needle. I pull it tight against the fabric. If I do it twice in the same spot, it's like double knotting, like if you double knot your shoes. With felt, I think I would suggest a third one. So I just take a small stitch right where it's at. And come through this loop with my needle. And cinch it up. Ta-da! Now I'll cut that off. I still have extra thread, which is a good thing because I still need to sew right here, so I just need another knot at the end of my thread. There we go. Oh, it's not as sloppy. And now we just need to sew here. Okay, here's the back stitch again. Oop. Haha, I'm doing the back stitch backwards. Hang on just a second. Basically, there's no right or wrong way when you sew. As long as you go back and forth through the fabric enough times, you're probably in good shape. The trick is just making sure you go a stitch past the end of the stitch and then come back actually at the end of your previous stitch. So you come a stitch past the previous stitch and then back here actually at the end of your stitch. Doesn't even matter if you go through your thread. Okay, I've sewn there. I need another knot. I feel like doing this one this time. It's a little bit easier the more thread you have. There's 3. I'll trim it off. I've now sewn all sections that needed sewing. On the other side, it shows where my stitches are. The back stitches take up a little bit more fabric or show a little bit more thread, so they're a little bit more secure because they've been in and out a few more times than just the running stitch. Okay, at this point, you have completed step 3 and 4. You need to do step 5.